Welcome to the Stochastic MLB Strategy Show. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I'm here with Adam Scherer. You can find him on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And this show is sponsored by SoRare MLB, which is a digital trading card and an NFT-based free-to-play baseball game. We'll talk about SoRare MLB a little bit more later on. While you're coming in, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. Adam, we've got two different slates that we can talk about here. I wasn't really sure what we should focus on. I think we should just start with the early slate. How do you feel about going over the early 9-game slate first?
Yeah, sounds good. That seems like a logical order to do it first.
Yeah, because it's like the prize pools are big enough that I think it's worth talking about it.
Yeah, I don't know why DraftKings labeled the 7 o'clock their main slate. They have more money on the early.
Right, it's kind of dumb, but we'll see. Maybe we'll just do the early slate. We'll see how much time we have, but hopefully we'll. I think we'll probably get through both slates. Any thoughts on the early slate? Have you given it much thought? What you think you might do? How's your morning going so far?
Morning's good. As far as the early slate goes, it looks like we have a little bit better pitching today, so that's good at least. But nothing that really stands out. We don't have a Coors game, so that's normally all that really matters.
And we lost the game already.
Yes, I think we got a postponement already.
Yeah, which game? The Mets game was postponed already, so we already lost Mets and Guardians. So we no Scherzer. I guess we lost one of our aces. Yeah. Kind of impactful there. All right, well we can jump in game by game, talk about this early slate, starting with Detroit at Washington. Alex Faedo on the mound for the Tigers, Patrick Corbin for the Nationals. Any interest in these pitchers, Adam?
I guess a little bit in Corbin just because he's facing the Tigers. You probably aren't going to need to get there too much. He's showing up around like 10% of the time in my version of a sim. So don't know what his ownership is. We don't have that yet, but he looks decent. Pitching's a little bit better today than yesterday, but it does still. It's still not great. So getting to a little bit of Corbin, I think, makes some sense. Faedo's got a good matchup too, but I think he's even more difficult to get to than or more difficult to rely on than Corbin is. Not that Corbin is somebody you trust, but I would get to the Corbin side first.
Okay, makes sense. And yeah, as Adam alluded to, tools not updated yet for today's slate, but I just did put in a request. This show, of course, is an hour earlier than it is all week, so maybe caught the data team slightly off guard, especially when we don't have a slate that starts for another 5 hours. Asking it a little bit early today, but we should have I already got a response, so we should have the tools at some point during the show updated, so we can refer to those as we go. But how about the bats in this game? Detroit, Washington. Any interest in these bats, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, you have Alex Faedo pitching, you have Patrick Corbin pitching, so definitely interested in bats here. Very similar to yesterday, where we talked about it, where it was just like, obviously I don't know where the ownership's coming in today, but like yesterday, it was just like there's nothing in this game that you feel confident in because everybody involved sucks, but they're also cheap. That like something has to win out, whether it's cheap pitching doing well or cheap hitting beating the bad cheap pitching. There is still going to be some value coming from this game. I already said I don't mind getting into some Corbin, but also these bats are perfectly fine at inexpensive salaries. Obviously, I'll like them more if they're not getting a lot of ownership, given that neither team is one you're really going to trust. But both have implied run totals between 4.7 and 4.8. You have cheap pricing, across the board for the Tigers. Javier Baez, Riley Green are the only two hitters in the projected lineup north of 3,500 on DraftKings. On the Nat side, they don't have a single hitter in their projected lineup above 4K. So it looks like a spot where you can certainly get to value here against two pretty weak pitchers so far this season since the start of last year for Faedo. 203 expected ISO to lefties, 199 to righties. Corbin, since the start of last year, 223 expected ISO to righties, 157 to lefties. This year, it's been a little bit different for him, 186 to righties, 217 to lefties. Limited sample, obviously, especially to the lefties. But point remains that it's not very good pitching, and there's a lot of cheap hitting.
Yep. And how would you rank the four sides of this game? Harder without ownership here?
Yeah, harder without ownership, harder without any good players too.
Yeah.
Detroit 1, Nats 2, Corbin 3, Faedo 4. But I do think this is a game where the ownership will heavily influence what I do. There's nothing in this game where I'm looking at it and saying, like, this is a good spot. I don't really care what the ownership is, or, even within reason, I don't care what the ownership is. Like, if you tell me that the Tigers are unowned and Patrick Corbin is popular, I like the Tigers a lot more than Corbin. If you tell me the Tigers are popular and Corbin's unowned, I like Corbin more than the Tigers.
Right.
So a lot here is going to depend on ownership since I don't actually like any of it.
Yep. Makes sense. Hadn't noticed this. Josh Gillum says all the games start at 4 on the real estate. Every single one. We still have 8 games left. Was 9 previously, but they all start within 5 minutes of each other. I don't know if I've ever seen it before, Adam. That's I really like that. I mean,
Yeah,
it's pretty rare.
it'll make for a fun sweat too. Like it gets so frustrating when like you're either way. Like you're heavy on the early games and it's like, oh, I'm doing well, and then it's just like, well, I'm gonna have to just sit around for 4 hours and see
Right.
how far I fall. Or you're just looking at your screen for the first 3 hours, being like, oh, cool, I'm not making any money, and now I need to play catch up.
Right. Hopefully, I have innings remaining. Is
Right.
all you're hoping for at that point. Yeah, it's pretty cool having them all start at the exact same time. Also, I see Hannah Banana in chat. Who Hannah Banana took third in a contest of 3,500, I believe, last night. Said she used the lineup generator. Listened to the shows as well. Congrats, Hannah. That's really awesome. Hannah's
That's
been
cool.
absolutely
Congrats.
crushing all year, like across different platforms, Underdog, DraftKings, et cetera, et cetera. So keep it up, Hannah. Congrats there. All right, we'll move on to the second game of the slate, which is Arizona at Pittsburgh. We have Brandon Pfaadt on the mound for the D-backs, Mitch Keller for the Pirates. Any interest in these pitchers, Adam?
Yeah, Mitch Keller has actually pitched well this year. He's a pitcher that when he came up a few years ago, I thought was going to be really, really good, and I lost a lot of money backing that belief. And now he's finally good. So 30% strikeout percentage so far this year, 2.63 FIP. Not the best matchup against Arizona, but you do have a favorable pitcher's park in Pittsburgh. Just looks like a pretty good spot for Keller. He's 9,300, so not a crazy price tag there either. He's showing up for me as the 5th most likely top 2 pitcher, but not too big of a gap in most spots. Like Aaron Nola is clearly coming in at the top, along with Hunter Brown. Then you have Webb, Eflin, Gray, Keller. So I guess, yeah, 6th. So yeah, he looks pretty good. Don't love the matchup, but and there is still the risk factor of does he continue being good? But he does have good stuff. He always has, and he seems like he's put it together. Brandon Pfaadt on the other side, good park, good young pitching prospect, and he's cheap at 5,400. I'm curious to see where the ownership comes in. He's showing up around 7 to 8% of the time for me. If you get 2-3% ownership on him, then that would obviously make him look more appealing. If you get a situation where it's like he's 5,400, so he's 20% owned, then I wouldn't like him too much.
Makes sense. What is your interest in the bats here?
Not too much. Like I said, Keller's been very good this year. It's not a great park for hitters either, so that hurts. Even looking at Keller's underlying numbers, he's gotten a little bit lucky in preventing power to righties, but we're talking about a sub 100 actual ISO compared to a 148 expected ISO. Lefties have a 107 expected ISO with a 32.5% K percentage against them this year. So it's really difficult to look at the Diamondbacks and say that you like anything outside of the very obvious, like Ketel Marte is good, Corbin Carroll's good, Christian Walker can hit the ball a mile. Like all of that is true, but very difficult to get to that team. On the other side for Brandon Pfaadt, like, it is, I think, his 3rd major league start now, maybe 4th, but not good results so far. 16% strikeout percentage to righties, 17.5 to lefties, 263 expected ISO to lefties, 534 to righties. Clearly, those numbers are going to come down over a larger sample, or he's just never going to pitch again. But the point remains that there is a high ceiling for the Pirates. They do have a 4.6 implied run total. They are pretty cheap as well. Brian Reynolds is extremely expensive at 5,900 on DraftKings. McCutchen, Sawinski, Hayes, all between 4 and 5K. But other than that, 3,500 or less on the rest of the lineup. So you can get some relatively inexpensive stacks with the Pirates. So I don't mind getting there. Still don't like the park. And I do think that, Brandon Pfaadt figures it out sooner than later. He's a highly regarded pitching prospect. But the Pirates look decent as a stack.
I have good news. We do appear to have the info updated in top stacks, top pitchers, etc. It does still have Scherzer in there, so not the last update we're going to be doing for the day, but at least you can get an idea of what we're expecting in terms of ownership for teams and players.
Yeah, so right now, as far as the teams that we've already talked about, Tigers are 3rd in top stack percentage and 3rd in ownership. No real problems with that. Washington pulling 10% ownership, 6% chance to be in the top stack, but 2nd to the Tigers in top value percentage. So ownership is fine there. Pirates pulling 5% ownership, 5% chance to be in the top stack. Arizona, 4.5% chance to be in the top stack, 2.5% ownership. So we have them going a little bit under owned, but we also don't have a starting pitcher listed for the Pirates. So I think that top stack percentage number is going to come down on them. So basically, factoring in value, the 4 stacks we've talked about are all pretty much correctly owned.
Okay. And how would you rank the four sides of Arizona, Pittsburgh?
Keller, Pirates, Fod, Diamondbacks.
Sounds good. Josh says, I'm losing to a girl. I need a new hobby. He says he's kidding, but yeah, we're all losing to women like on the reg. Like there are so many crushes. We got Rebecca Kennedy crushes all the time. Megan Joy. I believe losing to a girl is actually the username of a woman who used to hang out in Stochastic Chat. I don't know. Maybe I just haven't been in Discord as much recently. I'm not sure if she's still around, but yeah, and of course we've got Hannah Banana absolutely crushing everything. So nothing wrong with that. We've just got some women who are fantastic at DFS out there.
I mean, I get my mom texting me like, "I made $5 on the Orioles game tonight." I'm like, "Cool, that's like $2,500 more than I made."
Yeah, exactly. I know that feeling. Like, oh, I have a friend who plays only plays for free. Like DraftKings gives him like free entries and stuff, and he's like regularly updates be like, "Hey, made another $20 on DraftKings," and I'm like, "Cool, I lost $1,600 last night." Like, congrats, man. Yeah, but yeah, we all lose, and I'm not even counting Tanner Tolbert's wife when we're talking about all of the DFS crushers. All right, next game we've got Colorado at Texas. Kyle Freeland on the mound for the Rockies. John Gray for the Rangers. Any interest in these pitchers, Adam?
Yeah, definitely interesting. Gray. He's showing up in my top 5 in terms of top 2 pitcher percentage. I'm still trying to load hours, so I'll have that in a second. But yeah, good matchup for Gray. He's showing up around 18% to be top 2 for me. Rockies are really bad, 3.5 implied run total. We saw Martin Perez have a solid start against them yesterday. John Gray has struggled this year, but can be pretty confident he's a better pitcher than Martin Perez. 148 expected ISO to righties. Where he's really had trouble is the 226 expected ISO to lefties. The biggest concern, though, is that he's only struck out righties 20% of the time this year. Lefties 14.9. That's not good. You go back to last year, though, 27% K percentage against righties, 20% to lefties. Hopefully it turns around sooner than later. I still assume that it will. It's not like John Gray is old and, is like washed up or anything. He should be fine. But either way, at 8,300, he's going to look like a pretty good option. Freeland isn't terrible, but I don't see any real reason to get to him here against a very good Rangers offense that has a 5-run implied total.
Makes sense. Any interest in the bats here in Texas?
Yeah, interested in the Rangers. Like I said, Freeland isn't terrible, and he is pitching outside of Coors, which is nice for him. But 205 expected ISO to righties so far this year, 175 since the start of last year, 196 expected ISO to lefties since the start of last year. So if you are stacking them, don't sleep on Seager and Lowe. But you're going to get a predominantly right-handed lineup. It's going to set up pretty nicely for Marcus Semien, Adolis Garcia, Josh Young, Jonah Heim, if he's in the lineup. So, yeah, Texas is going to look pretty good. In terms of top stack right now, we have them 5th with a 6.5% chance of being the top stack, 6.5% projected ownership. So, once again, no real lean based on ownership, just a good team to get to.
Makes sense. And how would you rank the four sides?
Texas 1. Actually, I guess Gray 1, Texas 2. Rockies and Freeland are like the same play to me. Like low probability. It's baseball, so it could work out, and they're cheap, but you're not expecting anything.
Okay. I just realized I named off like several of the women who crushed DFS. Didn't even talk about Creighton also just won a FanDuel live final seat just yesterday. Another woman who's great at DFS. All right. Next game on the slate, we have Cubs at Phillies. Jameson Taillon on the mound for the Cubs. Aaron Nola for the Phillies. What's your level of interest in the pitchers here, Adam?
Definitely interested in Nola. We have him pulling 44% ownership with a 19% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. I have him with a 28% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, so I'm a bit higher on him. For me, he's the most likely top 2 pitcher on the slate. So I still think he's going over-owned at 43%, but it does at least it makes more sense to me with the way I have it, where he is at least the best pitcher on the slate.
Yeah.
Whereas, for us, it doesn't make a lot of sense because we have him as the 4th highest top 2 percentage and the most ownership. So I do think one way or the other, he's going over owned. I'm just a little bit higher on him here than we are. Not a great matchup against the Cubs, but still a good pitcher. Still somebody I'm happy to get to. He's another one that has certainly struggled so far this year. 19.2% strikeout percentage, 4.09 FIP. The FIP isn't bad, but it's not good by NOLA standards. The strikeout percentage is definitely concerning, but he's also 9,200, and we do just have a long track record of him, being a good strikeout pitcher. So I expect that to come back sooner rather than later.
Okay. So you say you have Nola number 1 in terms of top 2 pitcher odds in your sims?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. That's a pretty big disparity, 1st and 4th. All right. What is your level of interest in the bats in this game?
Not super interested. More so in the Philadelphia side. 5 implied run total, good park to hit in. Jameson Taillon's not a bad pitcher, but he does typically struggle against left-handed bats, both with power and with strikeouts. Since the start of last year, 195 expected ISO to lefties with a 20% strikeout percentage. Through his first few starts this year, 278 expected ISO, 19% strikeout percentage. Pretty dangerous spot for him when you have to deal with Bryce Harper and Schwarber in particular. Bryson Stott will be hitting from the left side as well. The rest of the lineup, other than Brandon Marsh, is right-handed, so that benefits Taillon, but it's still a very high upside spot for the Phillies.
Okay, and how would you rank the 4 sides of the game?
Nola, Phillies, Taillon, Cubs.
Going to check real quick to see if we have any weather issues. Have you checked this at all, Adam?
I think the only...
Oh, we lost the Mets game already, so that was obviously
it looks
the
like,
big one.
The Phillies game and the Washington game could have some rain, but probably fine.
Okay, perfect. All right, we have made it through 4 games on the early slate, 4 out of 8, so we are halfway through. Let me talk briefly about our sponsor, So Rare. And for once, Adam, I'm at least off to a good start in So Rare this week. It's very early. We've only had 1 day of games. We have 2 left, and my starting pitcher already went. So not sure it's going to hold here, but off to a good start. In 14th place currently, and out of 2,000 plus entries, currently in line to win a tier 3 rare card. Pretty excited about that. But again, you guys should check out So Rare if you haven't already. I'll throw a link into chat if you're interested in checking out So Rare. You can do so, and you can start playing for free right away. Again, very easy way, fun way to play fantasy baseball. It's not DFS. It's not quite, it's not season long either, because you're doing new slates every 3 or 4 days, and like past slates don't matter. Each slate is its own thing. So it's nothing like anything you've seen before, but very fun way to play fantasy baseball. Build your own lineup each week, and you can play the common contest, where it's honestly kind of difficult to acquire new cards. So you need to, when you sign up, you should spend a little bit of time thinking about, okay, who do I want to have on my squad for the season? These are cards that I'm going to, you can actually, I guess it is, you can acquire new cards by swapping out the cards that you do choose right away. So there are ways to improve your team in the common contest, but you should spend a little bit of time there. But again, it's free to play, and then you can enter those common contests where you can win real prizes. You can win some of these limited cards in those common contests, as well as, new, better common cards. So that's one way to acquire those, is winning them in contests, but also you can swap out if you need to. But again, it's free to play with the common cards, and then you can win these limited cards that are actually worth some money. And then if you are like me, you want to spend just a little bit more of an investment, you can buy some of these limited cards. They're not that expensive. Some of them obviously more expensive than others, but it's not that expensive to build a good lineup. If you want to build the best lineup, yeah, maybe you need to spend a little bit more. But again, I'm in 14th place here with none of these cards all that pricey. I guess Aaron Judge, I think, was over $100, but maybe Freddie Freeman. In general, though, I don't think that a lot of these cards are all that pricey. So cheap, even if you want to play the limited contest, free if you want to play the common contest, and it's a lot of fun. I check this regularly, especially when my DFS is not going well. It's fun to check in on So Rare and see, okay, maybe I have something to hope for, and looks like that might be the case this weekend. I can at least hope that this team does well, but highly recommend checking out So Rare if you haven't already. It is a very fun way to play some fantasy sports. All right, back to the early slate, Adam. Next up, we've got Miami at San Francisco. Braxton Garrett on the mound for the Marlins, Logan Webb for the Giants. Any interest in these pitchers?
Yeah, Logan Webb in particular, 3.3 implied run total for Miami. We have Webb showing up as the number 1 pitcher in top 2 pitcher percentage. I have him 3, but again, it's kind of splitting hairs there. Mid-20s for, everything. So he looks pretty good. Very low implied run total. No Jazz Chisholm for the Marlins. Good pitcher's park in terms of preventing power. The only negative is that Webb is 10,600, so you're paying $1,400 more for him than you are for Aaron Nola. You're paying like $2,300 more than you are for John Gray. But if you can find the salaries, he is going to look good. Wind is blowing out in San Francisco, just as a reminder to anybody who sees that and is concerned. Does not matter at all in that stadium. The stadium is built for the wind not to matter. So don't worry about that. Webb, not a great strikeout pitcher, but good enough. 24.7% so far this year. That's up from where he's normally at. 3.75 FIP. Just a solid arm in a good pitcher's park against a watered down Miami lineup. He looks pretty good. On the other side for Braxton Garrett, he's really cheap in a good pitcher's park. 23% strikeout percentage this year, 3.95 FIP. I have him showing up about 12, being top 2 about 12% of the time. We have him 12% as well. So 13% ownership at 6,300. Just pretty much correctly owned. Looks like one of the better value pitchers on the slate.
All right. And do you have any interest in the bats in this game?
No, not particularly. Not in this park. Like it's an okay park. It's neutral in terms of run scoring, but just does so much to kill power that it's tough to get here all that often. One other thing I'd forgotten when we got the ownership update, but Brandon Pfaadt right now pulling 4% ownership. We have him 8% to be top 2, same ballpark I did. So he does, like, I prefer getting to Braxton Garrett if I'm paying down, but if you need to save ownership and you need a cheap pitcher, the math does work out there where like Brandon Pfaadt has an 8% chance of being top 2. Garrett's 12%. So Garrett's 1.5 times as likely to be a top 2 pitcher, but he's getting 4 times the ownership. Again, I would go to Garrett first, but if you need to save ownership and you need a cheap pitcher, you can make the Brandon Pfaadt pivot.
Okay, I like that. How would you rank the 4 sides of Miami, San Francisco?
Webb, Garrett, Giants, Marlins.
Okay. And now we're going to skip over the Mets game, which has been postponed already. Moving on to Oakland at Houston. We've got JP Sears on the mound for the A's, Hunter Brown for the Astros. What's your level of interest in these pitchers, Adam?
Extremely interested in Hunter Brown at 9,600. I am actually a little bit surprised that I have Nola coming in ahead of him. We do not. We have Brown second at 25 with a 25% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. He is my second as well. Really, really, really good spot. Sub 3 implied run total for the A's. Brown is one of Houston's best pitching prospects. He has a 25% K percentage so far this year, 3.5 FIP. Just good pitcher, good enough park. Terrible, terrible, terrible offense going up against him. So really like getting Hunter Brown. Not much interest in getting to JP Sears. His strikeout stuff this year has been solid. That's about it. 28% strikeout percentage to righties is very good. 265 expected ISO, 345 expected WOBA, not great. And you're going up against a Houston lineup that just has a lot of right-handed power here. So probably not going to be getting to much Sears, but Hunter Brown looks fantastic.
Okay, makes sense. Man, I should have taken him on So Rare. No, I couldn't have played him this week anyway because it was already too late. So didn't lose anything by going with Sonny Gray over Hunter Brown yesterday. All right, what is your level of interest in the bats in this game?
Astros look good. 5.6 implied run total. They're second in top stack percentage. They are also second in ownership at 14%, 8% top stack percentage, only 4% top value percentage. So they do look to be going a bit over-owned when you factor in salary and everything. I'm pulling up individual hitter ownerships now because there is always the chance that we get, 1 or 2 guys kind of skewing that ownership number to where from a full stack standpoint, you still wouldn't mind going there. Right now we have 21% coming into Altuve, 17 to Alvarez, 16 to Bregman, 15 to Abreu, 14 to Tucker. So it does look like a stack where either you're going to be getting to weaker parts of the lineup or you're going to be playing a bunch of relatively popular guys. That doesn't mean you can't play them. It just means, that's where maybe you play Brandon Pfaadt instead of Braxton Garrett or, you take a low-owned secondary stack or something like that. But they do look pretty good just given, JP Sears struggles with right-handed power this year.
Okay. Just got Gavin Sheets was scratched. Not sure that's going to affect much. All right. How would you rank the 4 sides of Oakland, Houston?
Hunter Brown 1, Astros 2, Sears 3, just because hitting's harder than pitching, and A's 4.
All right. Ryan Nelson says Neil has been a Vikings fan for too long, decided to finally become a fan of a team that wins Super Bowls. Chiefs are a wise choice. I assume that he's referring to my glass. No, this is a Super Bowl glass that is falling. I think this is meant to be like a collector's item kind of thing, and I just use it as my regular glass, and it's falling apart at this point. But Adam, when do you think is the last time the Vikings had a season where they won fewer than 8 games?
12.
It was 2014. They won 7 games. 2013 they won 5. But for the past decade, for the most part, they've been a competitive team. They're never like the favorite to win the Super Bowl, but the Vikings are a relatively competitive team. I was just talking about this with some of my Vikings fans friends. Like the thought people are talking about, like maybe they blow it up this season, like they're not expected to be, or like within the next year or so, maybe they blow things up, try to start over. And it's like the Vikings just don't really do that. They don't take that approach. They just try to get into the playoffs and hope for the best. Has been seemingly the Vikings approach. So not sure that's going to happen anytime soon, but no, very, very good team. I don't know what you're talking about. All right. Next up, we've got Yankees at Reds. We don't have a pitcher listed in Fantasy Cruncher for the Yankees. I don't know who it is. Do you have Luke Weaver is on the mound for the Reds? Adam, I don't know if you know anything about who is pitching for the Yankees today, but what's your level of interest in Luke Weaver or any potential Yankees pitchers?
Yeah, so I'm seeing Johnny Brito.
Okay,
He's 5K. I don't know what they're going to do. So they last time he pitched, they used an opener. I
right.
don't know if they're going to keep doing that. If he's actually starting this game and he's 5K, I do think he's somewhat interesting. The Reds aren't very good. The park isn't great for pitching, but if we're actually getting a Johnny Brito start at 5K, there is value there. Like, obviously, I'm not confident in him. I don't think he's very good, but he's just a 5K pitcher facing the Reds. But if they go to an opener, I certainly wouldn't be interested. Even if he starts, I'm not overly interested. It's just worth keeping in mind that he is really, really cheap. As far as Weaver goes, certainly not looking to go to him against the Yankees. Very, very good park to hit in. Yankees, obviously, a very dangerous lineup. 5.8 implied run total here. We have them first in top stack percentage, so I'm good with staying away from Weaver.
Minnesota sports fans have been beaten into submission. They're fine with being okay, low bar. That's Ryan.
That's like
get out of here.
I wish my teams were consistently okay.
Yeah, I mean that's a new thing for Minnesota sports teams. Like, I mean, the Vikings have been okay for a long time. The Timberwolves were just trashed for like decades, and now they're okay. And we don't love it, but yeah, we'll accept it as long as we're okay. And we have Ant, who is the most exciting, best player in the whole league. Then we're going to be okay with it. But yeah, in general, Minnesota sports for most of my lifetime, yeah, okay is a pretty good description. Yeah, Adam, you're an O's fan. They're finally good.
Yeah,
you're a
I mean,
Wizards
they were
fan.
good. They were good in the mid 90s. They were good in the mid 2010s, and now they're good. So we've had 3 stretches of a few years in my life where they've been good.
Yep. And then you're a Wizards fan. They've never
been good.
That
I mean,
good.
they were good when I was in like high school, but they would always get bounced by LeBron. So
right. And then you're a Commanders fan. Have they ever been that good in your lifetime?
They won a Super Bowl when I was 2.
Okay. All right.
But other than that, no.
Yeah, not like in your memory.
Yeah, I finally the only time as other than like when I was a kid and like we would do things like sign Deion Sanders and I would get excited. The only time I actually finally got my hopes up for them was RG3's rookie year when he took him to the playoffs and he was just unbelievably good.
Oh yeah.
And then he got hurt and that was that.
Yeah, that was such a bummer. RG he had so much potential. He was yeah, that was sad.
And I'm a Caps fan, which like they are consistently good, but they're like the other end of the spectrum because they finally won a Stanley Cup, but like for years, like the whole time I was in college, they would be the number 1 seed and then just lose before the Stanley Cup finals. So it was like they'd get your hopes up because they were actually expected to like win and then they wouldn't.
Yep. So sad. Flex 305 says, what a superb call by Gator with that Mountcastle bomb call. Made 2Gs betting it at plus 600 live. Tired of Sean stealing dongs and using them as his own because his don't work. I have no idea what the backstory is here, but good call there, Gator. Must have been in chat yesterday, maybe.
I don't know. I know he was mine also, so I'll take.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I remember we both made homer picks yesterday. I didn't remember if it was Mountcastle for you. I don't know. Maybe he means you. Maybe he's calling you Gator. But
I think I'm blanking on his name.
We have somebody in chat named Gator.
Yeah, somebody else had Mountcastle too.
Okay, so yeah, multiple people had Mountcastle. Okay. All right. What's your level of interest in the bats in the Yankees Cincinnati game?
Really high in the Yankees. You know, like I said, number 1 in top stack percentage at 16%. That's double anything else on the slate. Obviously, that could change, you know, between now and lock, but they're still going to be near the top. 20% ownership is a lot for a 9-game or 8-game slate where you don't have the best pitching. But Weaver is a really difficult pitcher for me to talk about typically. He was a pretty highly regarded prospect when he came up with either Arizona or St. Louis. I don't remember which one he was with first. And I never really saw it with him, but then he would like consistently be better than I thought he should be. Then he turned bad. So I've never really understood how Luke Weaver works. But Yankees advantage here. He's also been hurt a lot, so it's tough to get a good read on him. But since the start of last year, 206 expected ISO to righties, 158 to lefties, 25% K percentage to righties, 18% to lefties. Similar splits this year, except for he is giving up power to both sides of the plate. So in this park, the Yankees are going to look really good. I don't mind getting to the Reds either. 4.8 implied run total. I don't think Johnny Brito is particularly good. I will like it less if the Yankees do go the opener route. But so
Yeah.
far this year, in his limited time with the Yankees, 244 expected ISO to righties, 243 to lefties. The Reds aren't a particularly good lineup, but they are sixth in top stack percentage at 6%, only pulling 3.5% ownerships. They look to be going a little bit under owned. They're not super expensive. Jonathan India is expensive at 6K. Fraley, Stevenson, Senzel, all relatively expensive, just shy of 5K. But Matt McLean is still only 3,200. Spencer Steer is only 3,800. So still a reasonable stack to get to, I think, that is going on their own.
Yeah, I mean, great spot in Cincinnati is very nice. Can you rank the four sides of this game?
Yankees, Reds, Brito, Weaver.
Okay, and then final game of the early slate is Milwaukee at Tampa Bay. We've got Eric Lauer on the mound for the Brewers, Zach Eflin for the Rays. Any interest in these pitchers, Adam?
Yeah, interested in Eflin. He is up to 10K. That didn't take very long. It was pretty obvious or pretty likely that he was going to be good this year because the Rays went out of their way to get him this offseason. He's always shown the ability when he was with the Phillies. Like he showed ability, but he never really put it together to be like a top level pitcher. And then the Rays just went out of their way to get him. And when the Rays do that with a pitcher, it's a pretty good chance that they see something that they think they can improve on and make him really good. So far this year, he did deal with injuries a little bit, but 27.7% strikeout percentage, only a 3% walk percentage, 3.5 FIP. Just looks really good. Decent matchup here against Milwaukee. We have him third in top two pitcher percentage. I have him fourth, but again, splitting hairs there. We're both around 20 to 22%, 26% ownership, so that's not really a problem. He is one of the better pitching options on this slate.
All right, and what is your level of interest in the bats?
Not too high. The Rays would be where I go first. It's Tampa. They're obviously really good. The game's in Tropicana, so that hurts a bit, but they still have a 5-run implied total. Eric Lauer is kind of just a middle of the road pitcher, but we know, how much upside is in this Tampa lineup. So far this year, 252 expected ISO to righties for Lauer. Randy Arozarena is going to look pretty good. Wander Franco always looks good, but then you have cheaper price tags on Harold Ramirez, Isaac Paredes, Taylor Walls. Margot is near min salary. So decent stack to get to. In the top stack stool, we have Tampa Bay, middle of the pack, 5.5% chance to be in the top stack, 4.5% projected ownership. So pretty much owned correctly, especially when you factor in that they're expensive.
Is Zach Eflin on some kind of a leash? I just saw somebody in chat said, wish Eflin had a longer leash, Josh says. I'm trying to look up what his actual pitch counts have been.
Pitches last time out.
Oh, okay. So maybe if he's not playing well, they pull him early is what Josh means.
So he had been on a shorter leash, but that's because he dealt with an injury.
Right.
So he was on the injured list from like April 7th to April 23rd. So then he came back. He threw 67 pitches in 5 innings. Then he threw 74 in 5. Then he threw 80, but that was 7 innings. So like that's a game where he probably didn't get pulled because he was at 80 pitches. He probably got pulled because they were just going to the back end of their bullpen after 7 innings. And then last start, 6 innings, 102 pitches. He's good to go.
Okay. Yeah. And Josh said that. Followed up. I didn't see it. Did pitch 100 pitches. So acknowledge that. Spencer Smith says, did Neil say Zach Efron, the actor? I don't think so. I might have. I mean, very similar names. So maybe is the answer there. All right. Can you rank the 4 sides of this game?
Eflin, Rays, Lauer, because pitching's easier than hitting, and then the Brewers.
All right. We have reached the end of the early slate, Adam. Starting with, if you're playing a 3 max contest, you want to enter 3 different stacks. Which 3 stacks are you going to?
So factoring in the way ownership looks right now, probably Yankees, Tigers, Reds.
3 favorite pitchers.
Yeah, so this is a weird. So like I said, Nola's showing up at the top of my stuff. In terms of what I have confidence in, I would say Brown, Webb, and Eflin, but Nola's showing up 1 for me. So kind of hoping that changes between now and lock. I like the way our stuff looks better. But I would say it's 3 of the 4 of Nola, Brown, Webb, Eflin.
Home run pick.
I didn't have it. There was like nothing as we went through the show that stood out as like this guy's going the homer. I'll take Bregman.
All right, I'm going to go with Anthony Rizzo in Great American Ballpark, lefty on righty, is my home run pick.
Yeah, and Judge is the obvious answer, but I just didn't want to go there.
Yeah, I thought about doing Judge too, but we'll go Rizzo. Okay, we made it through the early slate. We did get a request to do tiers. Yeah, all right. Pat Fitz really wants us to do DK tiers for the early slate. Can we do that quickly, Adam?
Yeah.
I'll pull up.
Tier 1, Aaron Judge. Tier 2. Tier 2's tough. Arozarena. Could make a case for Alvarez, but Arozarena. Tier 3, Semien. Tier 4, Adolis Garcia. Or Kyle Schwarber, but probably Garcia. Tier 5. Gross. Probably Jeremy Pena. And tier 6, Rizzo.
All right. I was thinking maybe Nick Senzel in tier 5 is somebody you can consider in Great American Ballpark.
Yeah, I like Senzel. Tier 5 was just like there was a lot of good choices. There was nobody that stood out. Like you could definitely make a case for Seager, Castellanos, Senzel.
Sure. All right. Good. That was quick. I didn't even have to do any work there. You just answered all by yourself. All right. We will move on. We'll go quickly through the night slate as well, which is, I believe, another 4 games. Yep, just 4 games on the night slate. But wait, let me double check to see if Lineup Generator is prepared now, so we can talk about it as we go over the night slate, because it will be. It's only set up for the main slate, which would be the 4-game evening slate today. Unfortunately, because DraftKings mislabeled it. Let's see if we have it ready. Chris Sale, Louis Varland, Joe Musgrove. Is that double check this?
I think so, yeah.
Yep. Okay. So we do have Lineup Generator ready to go. So let's take a look at Lineup Generator before we jump into the night slate a little bit. I'm going to add this and refresh because I don't see it showing up there. All right, so I already chose our usual stuff, Adam. I chose to do balanced builds here. We're not going to do anybody locking in as pitchers. Just take a look at what we get on this 4-game slate. Interesting. So we start with a 4K pitcher. Jesse Chavez is one of our pitchers, along with Chris Sale. And then we've got what appears to be a 5-0 stack of the Cardinals. Fairly chalky, like nobody's going to be super low owned. That's probably what you can expect on a 4-game slate. I guess you do save some ownership on the Jesse Chavez play. Adam, what do you think of this lineup?
I'm double checking Jesse Chavez because I don't think he's playable.
Okay.
Yeah, he's just opening. Like he hasn't thrown more than an inning and a third this year. So with it being a 4-game slate, I guess he is playable in the sense that like there's only 8 pitchers. This lineup is using pretty much the entire cap. So if you're going to play Jesse Chavez, it should be in a lineup like this. But we talk a lot about you don't need to worry too much about leaving money on the table in MLB. Jesse Chavez is an example where like I wouldn't want a 48 or 47-5 lineup that has Jesse Chavez because I can just turn him into a pitcher that is going to go more than an inning. But in a lineup like this where you're just getting all the best bats, you're using basically the entire cap, you're just hoping Chavez gives you like 2 innings, scores like 6-7 points, and that pitching on the slate in general doesn't do well.
So did you say that Jesse Chavez probably not going more than like an inning or 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we have him over projected clearly right now. Sometimes you'll see that in the morning. Our projections get better throughout the day.
So 14.4 is not it.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what's going on there. Why we're getting to some Jesse Chavez. Probably won't be getting Jesse Chavez in your lineups later in the day as we adjust things. But that's a good note. So you probably don't actually want to play Jesse Chavez here. All right, I'm going to discard this one because we don't want Jesse Chavez. All right, second lineup, we get Chris Sale and Louis Varland. We've gotten Atlanta, St. Louis. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-3 Atlanta, St. Louis stack. Again, you're getting Brendan Donovan at under 10% ownership, Paul DeJong at 12%, Eddie Rosario 9%. So some lower owned bats for a 4-game slate, a little bit chalkier with the pitchers. Adam, any thoughts on this lineup?
I think it looks pretty good. 4-gamer, so like I've said it a lot when we talk about this tool. Everything's relative, so you're comparing lineups to each other. So the first thought when you look at this might be like, oh, it's just a really chalky lineup. But with it being a 4-game slate, none of these ownerships are crazy. You've got a couple of relatively contrarian plays with Eddie Rosario and Brendan Donovan. So yeah, it looks like a good lineup to me. Atlanta, St. Louis, solid pitching, looks good.
Yep. And by the way, I kind of buried the lead here. We do still have this for 50% off right now. You can get Lineup Generator for your first week for just $4.50. Just going to be $9 after that. And again, the Lineup Generator is only giving you good lineups, with the exception of that Jesse Chavez lineup, I guess, but closer to actual lock. You're only going to get positive EV lineups in Lineup Generator. All bad lineups have already been vetted. They've been filtered out. Every lineup you get through Lineup Generator is going to be a lineup that has been found to be plus EV in these stochastic samples, meaning over a long sample size, several slates, these are lineups that are going to win you money if you play them every day. If you just play lineups from Lineup Generator every day, long term, you should be a successful MLB DFS player. So really fantastic tool, and it's just $4.50 for your first week, $9 after that. Really great tool. Check it out. I just put the link into chat. I believe I did. Let me double check that. Yes, I actually did put it into chat. So you can use that link to get this for 50% off. Highly recommend checking out Lineup Generator for the evening slate if you haven't yet checked it out. We won't spend any more time on it. We do still have, let's talk about these 4 games a little bit more, Adam.
But before we get into that, I just wanted to kind of, somebody said, Richby said, are you guys worried about Nola just not being dominant so far this year? He looks like he may have lost a step. I mean, yeah. Just to kind of, we talked about it a little bit when we talked about Philly, but like we're far enough into the season that I am concerned about it. If this were like, April 15th, I would be like, I don't care at all. But I am concerned about it. And especially because like when you look at his underlying stuff, his underlying numbers, they're not great either. Fastball velocity is down a mile per hour off of last year. Not a huge deal, but you'd rather not see that. Chase percentage on pitches out of the zone is down. Called plus swinging strike percentage is down. Pitch values, like the way that his pitches are graded on FanGraphs, is down across the board. So there are legitimate reasons for concern, but the flip side to it is that we still have years and years and years of Aaron Nola being a good pitcher. It's more likely than not that by the time we get to like the All-Star break or the end of the season, that he's just back to being what Aaron Nola normally is. So it's not, it just becomes something where it's like, yeah, I'm not confident clicking on him because he hasn't pitched well, and it's not just bad luck. But at the same time, the salary fell a bit, and I'm not going to like, you're just missing out on money if you wait for him to have a couple good starts. Like, you don't want to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to wait till Aaron Nola, puts together 3 straight starts, and meanwhile, I just don't, win those slates. So it's, you're still using a lot of previous data in somebody's projection, and more often than not, that's going to be the right way to go.
Yeah, good call. So it's like, yes, concerned, but not concerned about it enough that you're not going to try to take advantage of other people being concerned about it, essentially. Like,
right, pretty much. Like,
while ownership is
whatever Aaron Nola lineups I get, would I be a lot happier if I could look at his numbers this year and be like, yeah, this guy's an ace? Like, yeah, I'd feel a lot better, as opposed to being like, this guy's pitching like he should be $7,000.
Right.
But it's still a guy with a long enough track record, and it's not like he's 100 years old or anything. You're not expecting a quick drop off for him. The dude's not even 30 yet, so should be fine. But yeah, just don't feel as good as I would if he'd been pitching well.
Ryan Nelson asks, how's the Minneapolis weather today, Neil? Yeah, right now it's cold, but it's going to be 72. I looked at the forecast for the next week. It looks beautiful, all 70s and 80s, sunny for the next week. So I'm pretty excited to finally have some nice spring weather here in Minnesota. All right, let's talk a little bit game by game. Just a 4-gamer here for the evening slate, starting with Dodgers at Cardinals. We've got Noah Syndergaard on the mound for the Dodgers, Miles Michaelis for the Cardinals. Any interest in these pitchers, Adam?
Syndergaard's actually projected to go a little bit under-owned here. I don't want to get to him. Hopefully I won't. But 7% ownership, 13.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Michaelis's ownership is pretty much in line with his top 2 percentage, both around 18%. They are the 2 least likely pitchers to be in the top 2. So not a ton of interest, but they are cheap. Outside of Jesse Chavez, these are the 2 cheapest pitchers on the slate. So if you need to save money, you can go here, but you probably won't need to too often because Chris Sale's not that much more expensive. Sandoval's not that much more expensive. Musgrove's not that much more expensive. So probably won't need to go here too much, but Michaelis looks like the better option of the two in terms of chances of success. Syndergaard looks like the better one if you're trying to save ownership.
All right. And what is your level of interest in the bats?
Dodgers coming in number one in top stack percentage against Michaelis, 15% ownership, 17% chance of being the top stack. 14.5 stack score is second best on the slate to Minnesota. So they look, pretty good. Michaelis is a pitcher I never mind taking bats against. It doesn't always work out, and it's really frustrating when it doesn't, but not a lot of strikeouts for him. So you're letting the guys hit the ball, and the Dodgers have so much power in this lineup that I do like taking my chances there. As far as the Cardinals go, I'm always happy to stack against Syndergaard. We do have them third from the bottom in top stack percentage and pulling 16% ownership. So the way things look right now, I wouldn't get to them much because we do have them projected to be the highest owned team on the slate, despite having the third or fourth worst top stack percentage. They aren't that cheap either. Like they aren't expensive, but it's not like you're getting a free team. So the way ownership looks right now, I wouldn't get to a lot of the Cardinals, but if that ownership comes down, always happy to stack against Syndergaard.
Makes sense. How would you rank the four sides of the game?
Dodgers, Cards, Michaelis, Syndergaard.
All right, second game of this evening slate. We've got Seattle at Atlanta. Logan Gilbert on the mound for the Mariners. Jesse Chavez opening at least for the Braves. I think you've already told us you don't have any interest in playing Chavez necessarily today. Just tell me about your level of interest in both these pitchers. You can go over Chavez again as well.
Yeah, I mean, Chavez is like in the perfect lineup where it's just like I have everything that I want and I can only afford a 4K pitcher. You can go to Chavez, just know you have no ceiling there. Like you're hoping for like 6 points, and then that your Michaelis, Syndergaard, Sandoval type guys score like 10. You're just hoping basically for an offensive slate where pitching ends up not mattering, at least SP2. So wouldn't expect to get to much Chavez. I expect him to go an inning or two.
I'm guessing you haven't looked at like relief pitchers, but would you consider playing other relief pitchers? Because I would imagine like any relief pitcher is also going to be 4,000 if you're really only expecting like 1 or 2 innings from Chavez. I guess all you have is security of if he's starting, so he's actually going to get in the game. So would you ever consider pivoting to another relief pitcher here?
So I don't think that I would pivot to like another guy that I expect to pitch an inning. If I can find somebody on Atlanta that like could actually give you several innings, then maybe. Dylan Lee looks like probably the best candidate for that.
Just more of a general question. I'm not asking you to go find.
I mean, like typically on a 4-gamer, I wouldn't. Like I would have never even looked at this if you hadn't said anything. Right. But it is my thought on it would be like Dylan Lee's on the injured list now, so not him. If there was somebody that they were consistently using as a long guy, it would be kind of interesting. I don't think that exists. Looking at their bullpen usage recently, Dylan Lee threw 38 pitches on Tuesday, but again, he's on the injured list now. Danny Young threw 39 on Monday. I don't know anything about him. He is 4K. He is now at AAA apparently. So I can't find anybody in Atlanta's bullpen I'd want to play.
Explosive Diarrhea asks, do you think the Astros will win today? I just want to ask that because I love the username, Explosive Diarrhea.
I mean, I'm going to say yes because they're like, 67% to win.
Greg and I did a show yesterday on Underdog where we did a draft against somebody whose username on Underdog was Tiggle Biddies, and got us thinking about like, what would Underdog do if somebody with a username like that wins Best Ball Mania 4? Like, what do you think they would even do? Like, do you just like not advertise it? Do you make them change their name?
I've thought about it. Do you know what my name is on Drafters?
Eric buying for his bitch tits.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, I guess it makes sense that you've thought about it. What do you think they would do? Like, do you think they would just make you change your username? Like, we're not going to advertise this unless you're willing to change your username kind of thing, or just like call you by your real name, maybe?
Yeah, they probably just use my real name.
Yeah.
I was really surprised that I was allowed to create that name.
I know, me too.
Once it worked, I think they're kind of just screwed.
Yeah. I don't know.
There's not as much money to be won on Drafters, but there's a part of me that if I could just pick one site to win on, like, $3 million would be nice, but having Buying for his bitch tits posted everywhere would kind of make
Plus,
up.
it's all season on drafters because it's not like Underdog where it's like you get the regular season and then other stuff. Like if you're leading throughout the season, everybody's just seeing Eric Buying for his bitch tits
That's
the
true too.
entire
Yeah.
year on DraftKings.
Yes.
All right. Just fascinating. Just the username explosive diarrhea made me think about that. All right. And sorry, did you get into your interest in Logan Gilbert?
No, I didn't. Gilbert looks fine. Not a good matchup against the Braves. 5-run implied total. Pitching on this slate is just pretty weak. So Gilbert has a 29.5% strikeout percentage, 2.67 FIP. He's a good pitcher. He's getting 20% ownership, 27% chance of being top 2. I think it might be kind of tough to get to him just because he's far and away the most expensive pitcher on the slate and he's not in a good matchup. But it is interesting to just take what is pretty clearly the most talented pitcher. You could make a case for, Sale, I guess, but, getting pretty low ownership. He's like the 5th highest owned pitcher on the slate, and he's the best actual pitcher. So kind of interesting from that standpoint, but also $1,500 more expensive than the next closest pitcher and facing a team with a 5-run implied total.
Okay. Any interest in the bats in this game?
Yeah, some, just because the Braves do have a 5-run implied total. I don't love taking bats against Gilbert, but I do like taking the Braves whenever I can. Right now, they're getting about 16% ownership, 15% chance of being the top stack, so nothing that stands out there. On the Seattle side, 13% chance of being the top stack, 13% ownership. They're a little bit less cheaper than the Braves. They have a lower implied run total. Both offenses just projected to be pretty much correctly owned.
Okay. And how would you rank the 4 sides of the game?
Chavez last.
Chavez last.
The other 3 are like the same.
Okay.
Like the Braves are a very, very good offense facing a very good pitcher. Gilbert is a very good pitcher facing a very good Braves offense. And then the Mariners are a not as good as the Braves offense, but still solid offense in essentially a bullpen game that's unappealing. But so like you have very, very high ceilings from all of Gilbert, the Braves, and the Mariners. But from a median standpoint, they all just look like average.
Okay. So no strong takes other than Jesse Chavez last.
Yeah, I would have a stronger take if any part of that were like not popular, but Gilbert is not that popular, but he's still 20% owned, which is more or less correct when you factor in his salary. And then both offenses are pretty much correctly owned as well. So like ownership, if it changes by lock, if you get by lock, like the Braves are not popular or the Mariners are not popular or Gilbert's 10% owned, then that becomes my favorite part there. But
Sure.
The way ownership looks right now, they're all just sort of decent plays that are correctly owned.
Okay. Jake Swell says, I don't know why, but I always see a user on DraftKings named Latina Kitten. Adam, would you assume that is a woman? Since we were talking about women who crush DFS, I don't know that username, but would you assume that Latina Kitten is a woman?
I would assume so, yes.
I would assume so too. So maybe another DFS crusher just on lower stakes. Kevin O says lineup generator has been doing great. Yeah, seems to be off to a good start. I still remember like the first time I looked at lineup generator, I was trying to not play Yankee stacks. I was like, it keeps giving me Yankee stacks. I don't want to play Yankee stacks. And then of course the Yankees put up like 15 runs. So seems like it got off to a great start right away. Yeah, been crushing. All right. 2 more games on the evening slate. We've got my Minnesota Twins at the Angels. Louis Varland on the mound for the Twins. Patrick Sandoval for the Angels. Any interest in these pitchers, Adam?
Yeah, it should be 2 of the more popular pitchers. Very similar to yesterday, where you didn't have a lot of good pitching, and then you had solid arms in this game. The park's not good for pitching, but both offenses are still dangerous enough they can do damage, but neither pitcher is expensive. Both pitchers are pretty good. Louis Varland so far this year striking out 28.5% of hitters. 5.12 FIP is not very good, but strikeout stuff is there. So dangerous matchup against the Angels in this park, but 275 expected ISO to righties, 110 to lefties so far this year since the start of last year. Still a limited sample, but 239 to righties, 118 to lefties. Seems like he does a pretty good job mitigating left-handed power with a good changeup. Not to say you can't play Shohei Ohtani against him. Obviously you can. Jared Walsh could be back today. He's minimum salary. If he's back, that's a very good value. But you should have Mike Trout back in the lineup. So dangerous spot for Varland, but at 8,100, still certainly a solid pitching option. He's pulling 28% ownership. We have him with a 30% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So the ownership's kind of interesting because he's sandwiched between Chris Sale and Joe Musgrove. Sale is $500 less on DraftKings. Musgrove is $700 less. But Musgrove and Sale are both getting 42 to 43% ownership compared to Varland's 28. So I think the lack of ownership compared to those two offsets the fact that it is a pretty dangerous spot against the Angels. On the other side, Sandoval, 23% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, is third from the bottom, but Musgrove, Gilbert, Sandoval, well, we have Chavez at 25%, but again, that's because the projection's wrong. Musgrove, Gilbert, Sandoval, all 23 to 28%. 32% ownership coming into Sandoval because he is the cheapest of the good strikeout pitchers on this slate. So far this year, he has not been a good strikeout pitcher. He's only struck out 16%, but he does have a 3.99 FIP. He is a solid strikeout pitcher, previously in his career. Going back to last year, 22% against righties, 21% against lefties, sub 100 expected ISO to lefties, 133 to righties. Typically does a good job limiting power. So interested in both pitchers.
Okay. Jake says, I always see Latina Kitten in higher stakes turbo MLB slates, and she crushes those. Yeah, so another DFS crusher. And then Nate DS, what's the kitten part mean, Neil? Have you ever seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? Nate, it just means that she is part cat. She's a cat lady. That's all that means. All right. What is your level of interest in the bats in this Twins versus Angels game?
Still interested, even though I think the pitchers are good, I think the bats look pretty good as well. We have Minnesota first in the stack score. I said it that Sandoval does typically do a pretty good job limiting power. His strikeout numbers are down this year. Normally he's like an average strikeout pitcher, but you're just getting a really, really cheap Minnesota team. So that's driving up their stack score. Now, them being cheap doesn't necessarily matter that much on this slate where you're pretty much living with $7,500 pitching, give or take. But if you were trying to pay up to be somewhat contrarian with Logan Gilbert, for example, Minnesota's a way you could do it. So they look decent, 4.1 implied run total, good park. The Angel side, I think, is actually the more interesting side to me. They're getting 14% ownership, 12% chance of being top stack, but Varland just has had those issues with power this year. And if he's not on, you could certainly see the Angels do a lot of damage. And then also, if you do get Jared Walsh in the lineup, that makes the stack just that much less expensive.
Okay, and then how would you rank the four sides of this game?
Varland 1, Sandoval 2. I guess like Twins 3 because they're more likely to succeed. And actually right now they're a little bit lower owned as well. Angels 4, but again, I do like the power that the Angels offer.
Okay. One more game on the evening slate to talk about. First, guys, if you do live in a legal betting state and for some reason you have not yet signed up for BetMGM, we do have a great offer once again for people, for new users. Get 1 free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum, and your first bet is covered up to $1,000 paid back in bet credits when you sign up, make a deposit, and make your first paid wager at BetMGM. Click the link in the description or use promo code PLATINUMSUB when you sign up. If your first bet loses, again, you'll get paid back in site credits equal to the amount of that first wager up to $1,000. So you can do $1,000 bet knowing that you're going to get bet credits back if you lose that bet. Of course, if you win the bet, you're going to get all the money you get for winning. Fantastic deal. On top of that, you get a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. That's valued at $120. Everything we're talking about, top stacks tool, top batters tool, top pitchers tool, lineup generator, this is all included in that Platinum sub. Highly recommend signing up for this if you have not done so. Again, the link is in the description of this video. And reminder, the legal age for gambling in most states is 21 plus. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, Adam, one more game to talk about on this slate, which is Boston at San Diego. Chris Sale on the mound for the Red Sox, Joe Musgrove for the Padres. Any interest in these pitchers?
Yeah, definitely. Chris Sale, 7,600. Dangerous matchup against the Padres. We know they have a lot of good hitters in this lineup, but Sale seems like he's back. He's had good strikeout stuff all season long, but he was getting hit really hard early in the season. His last 5 starts, the only one where he hasn't been good was 5 innings against the Orioles. He had no strikeouts, gave up 5 earned runs. I and Alex Cora, and I think other people, are convinced that the Orioles have some sort of tell on Sale that he's tipping pitches. They lit him up in spring training this year. They've lit him up multiple times during the season. So it's almost to the point where like I am fine just throwing out that Orioles start because I think they know what's coming, essentially. Other than that Orioles start, his 4 starts, sandwiched around that. 6 innings against Minnesota with 11 strikeouts and 1 earned run. 6 1/3 against Cleveland, 1 earned run, 5 Ks. 6 against Philly, 3 earned runs, 10 Ks. 8 innings against the Cardinals, 1 earned run, 9 strikeouts. He seems like he's gotten it together. His expected ISO this year, including everything, including the start of the year, including those Orioles games, still only 164 to righties with a 301 expected WOBA, 114 to lefties with a 315 expected WOBA. So he's gotten a little bit unlucky in terms of actual ISO and WOBA versus expected. He has struck out 28.7% of hitters. That's second on the slate to Logan Gilbert, 3.78 FIP. And again, I just think that he was kind of rusty at the beginning of the year too. So like, I think the way he's pitching now is even better than what his full season numbers suggest. So 7,600, there's still, the doubt in the back of my mind because Chris Sale's been so inconsistent recently over the last couple of years. He's dealt with so many injuries, but it seems like he's not back to what he used to be, but still going to strike out 28 to 30% of guys. He's only 7,600. So that's the big thing. It's just how cheap he is. The matchup is dangerous, but Chris Sale, I think, is probably back to being like a $9K to $9,500 pitcher, and he's still only 7,600. On the other side for Musgrove, good strikeout stuff generally for him. So far this year, he has only struck out 21.6% of hitters with a 6.14 FIP. So he's been flat out bad this year. Probably turns around. He's only made 4 total starts. So, small sample. He's risky, but he's also only 7,400. So I don't mind getting to him. He's also getting 42% ownership. If I could only go to one between Sale and Musgrove, I would go to Sale. But I do think it's likely Musgrove turns things around. You do only have a 3.6 implied run total on the Red Sox as well.
Okay. DNA or John asks, hey guys, do you normally cap your hitters using the batter tool, or how do you guys cap your hitters in Fantasy Cruncher? Adam, I think you and I are going to have different answers because we have pretty different processes. Usually for me, it's slate dependent, but probably going to be around like 20% for all hitters on like a 10 plus game slate, 30% on a smaller slate. And it's really kind of arbitrary, to be honest. It's just, I know that I don't want to have more than 30% on a larger slate. Not going to want to have more than 30% on any pitcher. And then if you get to shorter slates, this 4-game slate, maybe I'd go up to 40%, 50%, depending on the slate. So really there's no magic to how I make that decision. I just cap it kind of based on the slate. Adam, do you have an answer there? How do you cap your hitters?
I don't. So yeah, I don't cap it at all. And just the way that my process shakes out, typically it ends up where like on a normal size slate, I don't get more than like 30% of any hitters. I might have, like one, if there's like a random, just cheap second baseman, like I might end up with more, but, and then on smaller slates, it'll typically shake out where like I don't get above 50%. The other day I had like 75% Ohtani, but like stuff like that, I don't care. But yeah, it's more, I don't cap anything. It's just the way that my entire process works. I typically end up in those same ranges that Neil said.
Yep. So that's different approaches, same kind of result there. Usually around 30% ends up working out on larger slates. And by the way, this is who I was talking about. This is Dennis married Maureen Ponderosa, and I don't remember exactly how the storyline went, but eventually she became like a cat person. This is what I was referring to, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Okay. Yeah. All right. On to the bats, the final game of the slate, Boston, San Diego. What's your level of interest here, Adam?
Not a ton, just given how much respect I have for the pitchers and that we have relatively low implied run totals here. I do think the Red Sox side is a little bit interesting just because Musgrove has been bad this year. Again, I don't expect that to continue. It's only 4 starts, but there is just kind of increased volatility there. And keep in mind, Musgrove is a pitcher too that struggled when they implemented the sticky stuff ban. Then he kind of figured it out, but it kind of seemed like he figured it out in a way where he just started cheating again in a way that he could get away with. So it is possible that he is now no longer able to cheat in the new way he had found to cheat. So there is, I think, with somebody like Musgrove, it's kind of different where, you get guys coming back from injury and it's like, oh, we don't know what to expect. It's not that so much as I don't know what Joe Musgrove is as a pitcher if he's not cheating. And I don't know if he's currently cheating. So I'm kind of interested in the Red Sox just because there could be a very big gap between how Joe Musgrove is projected and how Joe Musgrove should be projected given what is on his hands.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So then how would you rank the 4 sides of this game?
Snell 1, Musgrove 2, Sox 3, Padres 4.
Makes sense. All right. If you could only choose 3 stacks in a 3-entry contest, which 3 stacks would you go to?
The way with ownership, the way it looks right now, probably Minnesota, Dodgers. Red Sox.
All right. 3 favorite pitchers.
Sale. God, this is disgusting. Sale. Like, I want to say Varland, but also the matchup terrifies me. I want to say Musgrove, but he terrifies me. I could say Gilbert, but he's expensive and has a bad matchup. Yeah, so Sale. I mean, I guess Sale, Varland, Musgrove, but I would really like to be able to get to some Logan Gilbert.
Okay. And then home run pick. Freeman. I'm going to go to the leader in home run odds on the slate. Once again, is my guy, Byron Buxton. I'm going back for the homer pick once again. Didn't work out for me yesterday. Didn't get there, but seems like as good a bet as you're going to find. All right, Adam, that does it. That's the end of the show. Do you have any other thoughts?
No.
All right. No, I'm
enjoy
guessing
your weekends. I'm going to.
Yeah, I've got no more content the rest of the weekend. I assume you're the same way.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, that is going
MMA at 4. Don't forget.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. MMA is coming up at 3:00 Real America time. If you have not yet liked the video, please do like the video. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, and good luck today.